Welcome to Tomorrow.Africa, the podcast that explores the possibilities and the potential of Web3 in the African continent. We believe that the future of Africa is bright and that emerging technologies such as blockchain can accelerate its development. We interview people who contribute to this breakthrough in Africa and around the world and who hold a positive vision for the future. My name is Yassi Lokman and I'll be your host for this podcast. In today's episode, I'm honored to host Felix Macharia, the CEO of Kotani Pay. Kotani Pay is a forward-thinking platform designed to streamline the way online businesses manage local payments throughout Africa using a blockchain-based solution. As we chat with Felix, we'll explore the wide-ranging applications of Kotani Pay, from decentralized finance solutions like cash transfers, savings, and lending, to fresh strategies that address pressing challenges in African countries, such as implementing universal basic income for vulnerable communities. Additionally, we'll get a glimpse into Felix's inspiring entrepreneurial journey and his aspirations for the future. With a unique background that ranges from studying medicine to founding a tech startup, Felix's story serves as an inspiring reminder of the power of determination and innovation. Don't miss this opportunity to learn from his experiences as we uncover the world of Kotani Pay and its potential to make a positive impact on the payments landscape in Africa. Hi, Felix. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Yasin. Great to be here.
So, Kotani Pay is a Kenyan company leveraging blockchain for mobile payments use cases in Africa. It is among the projects I have been following in the last months, and it's great to see that things are moving forward. So I'm very thrilled to have you for this episode to discuss the state of mobile payments in Africa, the value Kotani Pay is bringing to the markets, and your objectives for the future. But first, I'm curious to know more about you, Felix. Could you tell more about your background, your passions, and what got you to your current position as the CEO of an African tech startup?
Yeah, sure. So I consider myself to be a curious mind. So I've always been interested ever since childhood in a wide variety of interests. I liked history a lot, so very fascinating how human civilization moved from small villages in Sumeria to the Roman Empire, the Greece Empire, to where we are today. So sort of like in the arrow of time, it seems like we're always moving into more and more complexity as a civilization. And I think my interest in technology came as a result of my interest in history and how technology has really transformed the human species and the human civilization. I actually did a Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery in university. Then I think along the way, my third year, I took a gap year to do a research degree, Bachelor of Human Physiology. And it's during my time there that I started exploring entrepreneurship and the fourth industrial revolution. So reading a lot around these new technologies from AI to IoT to blockchain and what they're doing for for the human species or human civilization and the changes occurring there. So it's during that time that I read a book by a lady called Melanie Swan. It's like Blockchain, a Blueprint for a New Economy. And I noted that she had a research institute that looked at the applications of blockchain around the world. She didn't have any researchers from Africa, so I volunteered myself, and during that time she gave me work to do to look at rent-seeking tokens. This is around 2016, late 2016, going into early 2017. So I go into this rabbit hole and start looking at blockchains and blockchain protocols. And there's that 2017 boom in December. Bitcoin gets to $20,000 for the first time. But it has never been the same since. my life changed from there. I became very involved in the ecosystem. Later on, launched a node validator on proof of stake blockchain called EOS, and then on a couple of other proof of stake blockchains like Icon. And that really taught me and my team the inner workings of blockchains and smart contracts. And then come 2019, we decide, blockchains are very disconnected from what we use on the continent. Can we build a bridge so that users on the continent can then benefit from some of the qualities and characteristics of the technology?
So mobile payment is already quite mainstream in a lot of sub-Saharan African countries right now. And Africa is, in general, considered today as a forerunner in digital payments. In this landscape, what problems is Kotani Pay aiming to solve exactly? Which customers do you target, and what value proposition do you aim to bring to the market in regards to the existing digital payments?
Yeah. Yeah. So I grew up in, they call it the Silicon Savannah, which is Nairobi. I, I was maybe 10, maybe 12, maybe 13 when they launched M-Pesa back in 2007. And, at the beginning, it wasn't something that people understood, not even like governments understood, only for it to, a decade later, take over the whole cash ecosystem. So today, M-Pesa competes very much with digital cash in Kenya. 92% of the population use it as their means of payment, right? So it's in that backdrop of being a user and growing up in a country where mobile money usage is ubiquitous that then we come to this, transition, and there's blockchain technology. So the way I look at it is these are different money ecosystems. If you're in the M-Pesa ecosystem, you probably find it easier to transact with anybody within that ecosystem than someone outside that ecosystem. So, for example, it's very easy for me to transact with somebody here in Kenya, but very hard for me to transact with somebody in Uganda who's probably part of the Airtel money ecosystem, or somebody in Ghana who's part of the MTN mobile money ecosystem. So we have the mobile money ecosystem, we have the cash ecosystem still very present in countries like Nigeria, and the banks as well. And then we have the blockchain ecosystem, which is another money ecosystem. And the advantages that blockchain brings to the table, which you don't find with mobile money. So it's very easy for me to use mobile money locally. But when you look at, for example, cross-border payments, mobile money doesn't solve the problems we face today with our cross-border payments. So you're looking at about 14%, 8 to 14% in fees, right? When you're doing cross-border remittances. The global average is 6%. So Africa is almost like 8% higher, right? You have a UN Sustainable Development Goal to get this to 3% by 2030. But it's impossible to get it to 3% using current legacy systems. So it's not possible to get it to 3% through the correspondent banking system. So like banks talking to another bank for the funds to get finally to the end user. It's not possible to do it through current remittance companies, right? So like if you're looking at a $5 transaction on Western Union, it's like $3. On PayPal, it's like $1.33 fees. On blockchains, it's seamless. So like if I have an account, I can receive those funds today. I can receive them within seconds, and the fees are really low on some of the proof of stake blockchains. I like to give an example. For example, the Silo blockchain, where a $5 transaction is like 50 US cents in fees. So there's that aspect of cross-border which blockchain can do that the other systems, based on just the technologies that they use, cannot effectively address. You also have the connection to the global economy. A lot of our youth today, as are digital savvy. They are somewhat connected to the internet, and so they can participate in the global economy. They can contribute to value in various global communities, but they have no way of bringing this value back home if it's not for the blockchain. So the blockchain is permissionless. They can get an account, they can get paid to that account. And the main issue we looked at was then, how do they get the funds out? How do they get the funds to the local economy? So whereas blockchain is a different money ecosystem, it's disconnected from money ecosystems that we use on the continent. So in Kenya and Ghana, we probably use mobile money as the primary money ecosystems. And this thing is actually a cultural preference, right? Because if you go to South Africa, it's more of cards and banks. And same with Nigeria. You're dealing mostly with banks and cash. So how can we connect blockchains to local payment channels that people use on a daily basis? So that's sort of like the first piece. The first piece is the on-ramp, off-ramp. So moving from digital assets to local currencies, and then moving from local currencies to digital assets. The second piece is the interfaces, right? So like if you are to really solve financial inclusion today for majority of the population in Africa, then you have to meet them on the interfaces they use. And 57% of the population are still using first generation phones. So you have to find a way to link USSD and SMS to the blockchain, which we did with the Kotani Pay USSD wallet. So I key in a code and it helps me create a blockchain account. The funds are stored on chain, but I interact with my blockchain account from this feature or SMS phone. So the problem we're really solving is the accessibility problem, sort of like this disconnect of blockchain protocols from local payment channels or local interfaces that people use here in Africa.
Is the access to an internet connection a requirement to use these products?
So no, for the USSD wallet, you really don't need an internet connection. If you can connect to a cellular tower, that's enough. For the API, which is the product, of course, that one rides very much on the internet.
Okay, and how are you technically able to make the solution work with no access to the internet? I'm talking about the USSD, since the whole value of blockchain is the ability to solve the double spend problem for transactions with no need for a central entity. But for that, you need the validation of a network of nodes which communicate through the internet. So are you able to solve this double spend problem without having to go through an internet connection?
Yeah, so we really don't, like, we basically just use the blockchain as sort of like the storage and security layer, right? So you'll have a user keying in a code that communicates with the mobile network operator in this case. The mobile network operator then communicates with our primary servers, and then the primary servers then go on to create a blockchain account on on the blockchain. So it's sort of like this hybrid approach where you have mobile networks on one side, and then you have blockchains on the other, but they obviously have to go through a database. The challenge with feature phones is there's no way of storing keys on the phone itself. So you have to find a way to encrypt the keys, store them, and then anytime a user is keying in a code or like choosing an option on the USSD menu, they're basically signing a transaction through their private key, which is encrypted and stored in a vault. So there are a lot of considerations around security, especially for these particular users. I would very much compare it to the work that Infura does, with its some of its nodes, or even some of the oracles that are out there. One of the primary things we are considering is, future build sort of, is how we can decentralize the Kotani Pay network itself, so that instead of depending on Kotani Pay Inc., it is more of a DAO that is secured by a community of DAO custodians and DAO contributors, sort of like open source contributors. But now it's very much us enabling users who can store keys on their feature phone devices to sign transactions directly to the blockchain.
Okay, it's clear. So the solution is built on Celo, blockchain protocol that serves as an infrastructure to build mobile payment solutions. Could you say more about Celo? And is there a particular reason that you made you choose the specific protocol to build your solutions?
Yeah, so Silo was a start for us, right? It was like that's where we started, and we started in Silo for several reasons. One is they had this focus on mobile first, so it's a mobile first blockchain focused on mobile first solutions. So we found this SDK very easy to use, like from a developer standpoint. A lot of the other EVM compatible blockchains emphasize a lot more on Web 2 and Web 2 interfaces. So it's difficult to work with, given that 90% or even 98% of the population in Africa is all on mobile. Like they literally just leapfrogged laptops and computers. They're all on mobile. So there was that aspect, and then there was the other aspect, which is Silo was built on a proof of stake, consensus algorithm, which made the fees really affordable. So for some of the use cases we're enabling, and I hope we'll get to that somewhere in this the podcast, you can't have crazy fees like the ones we had on Ethereum for a very long time. So the fees were another aspect. The next thing was the stable coin that they had baked into the protocol. So they had this algorithmic stable coin, CUSD, and now there are several other CEuro, CReal that they had baked into the protocol that enabled us to do some of these use cases. We didn't want a fluctuating asset, sort of like a crypto which is fluctuating. We just wanted something that's stable for our various use cases. And then they had this very unique technology called phone address based encryption. So basically, your phone number becomes your identifier, and it's how you create a blockchain account on the Silo blockchain. So we found that to be very smart, given that we're mainly dealing with phones, mobile phones. And then finally, of course, they had a focus on the continent. So they had various use cases they wanted to enable on the continent, and the ecosystem was very supportive to those various use cases. So for us, it was tick, 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 all those particular aspects. But Kotani Pay as a technology has been built to be blockchain agnostic in the sense that it can enable any particular blockchain. So we have moved beyond just Silo to other EVM compatible chains. We currently enable Avalanche. We are building on Arbitrum, which is an Ethereum layer 2. Polygon is one of the ones that perhaps will be one of our future builds. And then non-EVM compatible chains like Stellar as well. We enable certain use cases on Stellar today.
So are the payments done with specific cryptocurrencies? And is it possible to use fiat money for different use cases that you may have?
Yeah, so a lot of the cases are stable coins being used maybe for like transfer of value or like for generation of yield or like for staking into like a pool. So a lot of it is stable coins on the blockchain side. But most cases there is like off ramp to the local currency. So that's where the API comes in. The API is just that connection between a DeFi wallet and M-Pesa, for example, or like a crypto exchange or like an NFT marketplace to local payment channels, basically. So a lot of these cases we have seen have been liquid stable coins like USDC on Avalanche, USDC on Stellar, USDT Tether on Tron, for example. And then there's that aspect of cash out to like local currency.
In your external communication, you showcase 6 use cases, so which are lending, remittance, universal basic income, gig work, and saving and cash transfer. Some of these use cases are self-explanatory, but to be honest, I'm not sure to understand some of them. For instance, universal basic income and gig work. Can you say more about what these use cases are about?
Yeah, sure. So those are some of our very fast use cases. And in the case of universal basic income, you're mainly targeting, this is usually one of the most impactful things we have done at Kotani Pay. You're mainly targeting people in absolute poverty conditions, right? So like think of a refugee who has been stripped from everything they own, and everything they have, their job, and they left their belongings in their country and so on and so forth. They're literally starting from scratch. So the universal basic income aim is to get these people from this absolute poverty condition to a place where they can stand, by themselves or on their own. So it usually is unconditional payments that are sent to them on a daily basis. The challenge is these payments don't come from, they're not, they're not intra country. They are coming from outside. They're cross border. So if I'm going to do a $5 transaction cross border, and I'm doing this on a daily basis, and the refugees are claiming on a daily basis, I need an easy way. I need an affordable way to do it. So what we did with the likes of Impact Market, which is a decentralized UBI protocol, and we are slowly working with other partners like Give Directly and other UBI projects, was Impact Market collects funds from token holders around the world. This is crypto. This is all crypto. And then they channel these funds directly to users and wallets. So if I'm a refugee in, let's say, Kakuma or Dadaab in Kenya, or Kwisan in Ghana, I can create a blockchain account from my SMS phone, because that's what I have. I have an SMS phone. Probably I don't have connection to the internet, but I can connect to a mobile a mobile network, mobile telco. So I key in the code, and that creates a blockchain account. And then I check my balance. And if Impact Market has sent funds, stable coins, I will see my balance in my local currency. So in this case, maybe Kenya shilling or Ghanaian cedi. And then I can choose to withdraw. And when I choose to withdraw, the funds are moved from my Kotani Pay wallet, which is a blockchain wallet, to my mobile money wallet, right? And then I can use the funds for anything. What we noticed over time is a lot of these refugees, most of them women, will use these funds to set up like businesses in the camps. So somebody will start, for example, a shop, or like somebody will start, selling food to other refugees and so on and so forth. So it was a very nice way for people to set up businesses, to the extent that now the likes of Impact Market are moving from just universal basic income concepts to universal basic credit concept. So like I can use what the refugees have been getting to build a credit history and actually fund them or lend to them. The other use case was a gig work one, and this one was different in the sense that we were not dealing with people who are in rural areas. It's actually people in the city. So we're dealing with youth in the informal settlements within the city. And of course, they have smartphones and everything. So we partnered with Kosali, and Kosali sources for jobs from the likes of Uber and Airbnb. When you think about computer algorithms and how you train computer algorithms, is you feed them with millions of images, right? So that they can identify this is a cat, this is a dog, that kind of thing. You need a lot of images to train an algorithm. The challenge is that these images have to be labeled by someone. They have to be labeled by human beings. So you're not going to do this in Toronto or the US, where there is minimum wage. It's going to be too expensive to do. So what you do is you take these images and you push them to frontier markets, developing countries where people are in need of jobs. So these users will get these images on their mobile phone. There was an app that they were using, a Kosali app that they were using. They will label the images. They will earn something from it. But the payments, because they are small payments, $5 to $10 payments, will come in stable coins, in this case USD. So they'll receive this in their Valora wallet, which is the wallet within the Silo ecosystem. And then the challenge for them was, how do we cash out, right? Like, how do we get it to Kenya shillings so that then I can use it? So the API we built strips away the SMS aspect and just gives you the cash in, cash out aspect, on-ramp, off-ramp aspect. So then I can cash out to my Kenya shillings. And it's a seamless process for these users, because it's just a button. It's just like withdraw cash and I'm able to get my cash. So we are seeing people expanding just beyond like data annotation to other forms of micro work or micro tasks, and using stable coins as the means of payment in this case. So as a user here in Nairobi, I can work for anyone in the world, anyone in France, Europe, and get paid through stable coins, because that's the cheapest way to send value across.
How's the regulatory framework in the African countries where you are operating in regards to these use cases, and specifically the use cases that require regulation, like, for example, lending and saving? Are you able to fully operate with the current regulations, or is it still an obstacle?
Yeah, so of course, in Africa, regulations still remain an obstacle in most countries. So one of the reasons why we can't operate in Nigeria is there's an explicit ban, right? So like if you look at various countries, the regulatory landscape is not even. It's very different from country to country. So like South Africa has reached a point where the Reserve Bank of South Africa has said it's okay to bank, even crypto dealers like exchanges and the likes. Um, that this is very recent. I think it's like 2 or 3 months ago. In Kenya, we have taken a hostile position against crypto dealers, but we are setting up a sandbox for blockchain use cases. And the same for Ghana. So they have something called MTech, and that is setting up like a sandbox for blockchain use cases. So you find that in some of these countries, you're limited within the limits of the sandbox. You can't do things that affect a very large amount of users. In some countries, you're free to go on and do your, go on and enroll users as long as you have like a virtual asset service provider license. So like Botswana is passing one, and South Africa might be the next one that passes virtual asset service provider license. In some African countries, you basically can't do any business. So depending on the jurisdiction where you want to like follow the regulations, right? So like here in Kenya, we work with licensed payment service providers. There are certain demands on our side in terms of KYC, AML. So we work under that particular charter. For Ghana and Zambia, we are directly applying for payment service provider licenses because they have sort of like a tiered system. So you move from enhanced PSP, medium PSP, standard PSP. And so based on what capital requirements you can manage, you can apply to be part of that ecosystem. And then we also sort of like have applied to be part of several sandboxes and work within those limits of those sandboxes. As we wait for the regulatory landscape to become more even. So it's expected that now that the likes of Europe have passed or are looking to pass MiCA, which is one of the crypto related regulations, most likely just like GDPR, it will be adopted globally by most governments and will allow us to scale our operations to more people and to have an impact on lives. The other thing is, for regulators, I think people look at regulators sort of like this blanket old men who don't care about anything technology driven. You will be surprised. Some of the people that work in these offices are very young and they understand these technologies very well. They want to manage risk. In Africa, one of the greatest risks is capital flight. So people leaving local currency and going to like stronger currencies and weakening local currencies. And so what we tend to emphasize, especially for the humanitarian use cases, is how they are enabling local economies, how they're making the situation for both the citizens and the economies better. And we often find that gives us, a strong footing when we're beginning conversations with regulators.
So it's great. Could you tell more about the accomplishments of Kotani Pay? How much users you were able to have so far, the number of transactions you facilitated, and its total volume?
Yeah, definitely. So year to date, we have processed about $6 million gross transactional volume across a variety of use cases, like the ones you mentioned, from gig work to UBI to lending and so on and so forth. We have a B2B business model, meaning we serve people who already come with their users. So a lot of our clients already have users. So in some examples, you come with 10,000 farmers and you want to do a smart contract with weather index insurance on a blockchain, right? So we'll enable you to create wallets for these users and for the users to receive their funds by the end of the day. We have about 15,000 wallets here in Kenya, about 3 to 4,000 wallets in Ghana, and we have done close to 326,000 transfers this year on those various wallets. If you were to look at, for example, revenue or volume, 20% comes from the USSD wallets. 80% comes through the APIs, because APIs tend to serve bigger businesses that probably are lending to small and medium enterprises and so on and so forth.
And among the different use cases, is there one of them that is ubiquitous among all of these transactions?
No, what I'll say is for all the different transactions or use cases, the primary, the primary thing across most of them is usually off ramp. So I'm moving from stablecoin to local currencies, or on ramp, I'm moving from local currencies to stablecoins. So that's sort of like the common theme across many of these use cases. Many of them will be impossible without that aspect of the technology stack, because Kotani Pay is really, in reality, just a technology stack that has open source Web 3 APIs, open source Web 2 APIs, and probably some legacy systems like USSD and SMS. So if you were to look across the use cases, perhaps the most common thing is on ramp off ramp.
And you said that you have a B2B model. What type of customers were you able to have so far? So what are the types of customers that you're business customers that you're serving exactly?
Yeah, so our go-to-market strategy was simple. So we started with NGOs, humanitarian organizations that were looking to leverage stable coins because of the affordability aspect and the instant settlement. And another aspect which many people don't talk about, which is traceability. So the ability to see that the funds have gone to this blockchain wallet that's linked to this particular mobile phone number. Then we moved slowly to serve small lenders. Small lenders would be the likes of, at the time, Pesesha. Right now they're very big, but at the time was still a small lender on the continent. I have a marketplace where they link lenders on one side to businesses on the other. Then it started enabling DeFi wallets, right? So DeFi wallets for use cases like lending and yield provision, and in some cases parametric index insurance. And then slowly now we are enabling larger DeFi apps, wallets, and cryptocurrency exchanges. So when you think about it, it's people who just want to have this ability to serve their clients, and their clients are all within several money ecosystems. So they either within the mobile money ecosystem, or in some cases within the card ecosystem if you're in South Africa. So I would say crypto exchanges, wallets, DeFi apps, and NGOs, and even to some extent even fintechs. So there are fintechs that want to tap into blockchain liquidity, because if they're getting funds from banks and microfinance institutions, very expensive. If they're getting the same from blockchain protocols, DeFi pools, very affordable for them, very affordable for the people they're lending to. So that will be another demographic that we currently serve.
And how are you aiming to grow in the future? And are there specific African countries that you're targeting?
Yes. So our initial market was, of course, Kenya, and there's a lot more to do here in Kenya. I don't think we have really touched, majority of the market, but I think we can do more. Then Ghana was our next market, and then we are looking to go live in parts of Southern Africa, the southern part of Africa. So South Africa is one, Zambia is the other. In East Africa, we're looking at Uganda, Tanzania. And then in West Africa, apart from Ghana, we have Francophone Africa. So we're looking at Senegal and Ivory Coast as sort of like the next places. So we would want to be at least this single API that is open source that anyone can use to anyone with a DeFi wallet, cryptocurrency exchange wallet, and so on and so forth can use to connect to local payment channels. By the end of this year, or maybe around by March of next year, we should be live in 6 of those countries. Perhaps we'll concentrate on those countries first before we think about expanding into any other jurisdictions. But our long-term vision is at least to enable several African countries, about 20 or so, to be connected to blockchain protocols and some of these use cases.
Felix, what is your personal vision of the future of the African continent, and what place do you see Kotani Pay play in this future?
Yeah, so my view of the future is always that it's probabilistic. So there are various probabilities that can take place. So if we look at the backdrop of what's going on in Africa right now, we have a youthful population. Majority of people in Africa are youth. Some of them, some countries, like for example Uganda, we have like a median age of like 19. So it tells you that most of the population is below the age of 18. We have crazy population growth. People say it might get to 2.5 billion by 2030. Who knows? We have challenges with our local currency in terms of like financial stability and some of those inflation challenges we are facing. So if you're going to have a continent that is housing 2.5 billion people, most of them are young now, probably will be older later, you have to find a way to connect them to the global economy. In Africa, we don't have those, we don't have financial infrastructure. You can't say that our markets are liquid enough, or like our markets are connected enough to the global economy. And that's why, for example, in the case of the 2007, 2008 financial crisis, African countries were, they're okay because they're not really connected to the global economy anyway. So blockchains present this very unique opportunity. So like one will say once in a lifetime opportunity to connect Africans to the global economy and global use cases. Whether you're talking about liquidity for our local markets, or like in some cases lending, in some cases remittance, all these use cases that depend very much on a blockchain-like system. So where we see Kotani Pay is mainly just acting as a bridge between these various money ecosystems. We have a $1 trillion cash ecosystem in Africa, followed by like maybe $450 billion to $500 billion mobile money ecosystem. And the blockchain ecosystem, based on like Chainalysis reports, is at like $8 billion. So we are really far away from really connecting to Africa's ecosystem to the blockchain, like getting all these informal markets on chain, or digitizing some of these informal economies. So it's very clear that we are moving more digital. We're moving more into like digital cash, digital economies, and perhaps the enabler for Africa will be the blockchain. And for that reason, we need several bridges, not just Kotani Pay. We need so many other on-ramp, off-ramp players coming in and providing these bridges to the blockchain and enabling the connection between local markets and international markets.
Yeah, also considering that Africa is already leading in digital payments, so the gap to close between this future and the current situation is not big compared to other continents. For instance, developed countries in Europe or North America.
Yeah.
Felix, you said at the beginning that you were studying university medicine. I'm always fascinated about people who are able to lead and innovate in the tech space without necessarily having an academic background in tech, as it is the case for you. For entrepreneurs with disruptive ideas in mind, it's easy, for instance, to think that you're not able to launch a project using blockchain because you don't have a computer science degree. So what advice would you give to such people, for people with a lot of ideas, motivation, and capability to execute and want to launch a product, but who do not necessarily have a technical academic degree?
Yeah. I'll say many a times that's all that's needed. One is the passion, the interest. Two is the ability to work with others, because like a lot of these things are, you can only build them with teams and you can only build them with communities, right? So whereas there is, especially in the blockchain space, an overemphasis on technical skills, smart contract development, the ability to run a node, node validator, and so on and so forth. The reality is we still need so many other skills within, the blockchain space. So whether it's the ability to negotiate with governments or regulators, and that is for people with legal backgrounds or like people who are just like good negotiators, or the ability to market products, targeted to some populations we have here in Africa, and that needs marketing skills, not necessarily technical skills, or just the ability to um, educate people, educate developers, educate communities about this new regime, like new paradigm blockchain. So I often find that whereas the emphasis is too much on the technical skills, we need a variety of other skills for some of the products to succeed. If you look at Kotani Pay, for example, we have so many different non-technical people that help us push this mission of getting financial inclusion to the far reaches of Kenya and Ghana, and hopefully very soon other African countries. So a lot of it has to do with interest. So like in my case, as much as I was doing medicine, I was also had friends who were doing technical things. I tried to code in Python myself. I ran node validators from a strategic and operational level, and so I understood a lot about like, oh, this is how blockchains work, or this is how smart contracts work, and then I found a way to link that to what works on the continent. So, what I would say, it's not about the degree or like uh, the technical expertise that makes you successful. Whereas that's important. I wouldn't lie. Right now we are very dependent on our developers, to actually uh, connect blockchain protocols to like local payment channels. But even very technical people need help from other non-technical people to get the product across. So if you can build a team of people who can work together, I think it should be possible to do it even without a computer science degree.
Yeah, definitely. It's also like information and education is very accessible right now, so there is no excuse through the internet. Like there are a lot of programs, courses, and a lot of them are free and very high quality.
Yeah. And I did a lot of that before, like even I started, right? So like did a lot of entrepreneurship courses on Udacity, did a lot of blockchain courses on the likes of Udemy. So there's plenty of information out there to educate yourself sufficiently.
Yeah. And it's also the culture of Web3 communities is generally about experimenting. So it's not like in university where you need to know everything before entering like the job markets, but you just experiment. And it's also something that is very new, where a lot of innovation is still needed. So we kind of learn together about what is needed and how it could be done.
Yeah. And even I find even for our current computer science, like team members, right? None of what they're doing now was taught in uni. They can't really say they learned Arbitrum or any of these blockchains in uni. Some of them are very recently launched. So you're learning everything from scratch. You're all starting at the same place. So I agree, it's very experimental, and it's really for curious minds, people who just want to build something new and experiment with new concepts.
Yep. And how much are you in the Kotani Pay team, and how did you get together around this specific project?
Yeah, so a lot of the team members, we met back in 2016, 2017. So with the Bitcoin boom and everything going on there was a lot of interest in the space. So I was coming more from a research background, but other people were coming from all kinds of backgrounds, from like I'm a trader, or like I'm a developer, I like this blockchain thing, or like I'm in marketing, I like what's going on in the blockchain space, that kind of thing. So we met in meetups, right? In the time Nairobi. And then over time, I met some of my other team members in other meetups out of the country. And then when we're thinking about what to build, what was immediate for us was the node validation aspect. So like, can we build a validator that validates transactions for proof of stake blockchains? And that needed very much like a community. It was not like a company kind of approach. It was more like a community kind of approach, because you need like stake from the community. You need people to vote for you. You need people to stake to your validator, so that then you can process transactions for the network. So needed a lot of skills, from marketing to like negotiation to like education to like all these things. And then we transitioned with a large number of those people to build Kotani Pay. So most of them, I've worked with them for like 4, 5, 6 years even, within just like the blockchain space and blockchain rules. And then of course, after we raised our pre-seed round, we had other team members joining us. Most of them had worked within other crypto companies, from like AZA Finance to like crypto exchanges. And so they had this, at least this background. Today we are about 14, and slowly expanding our team. We believe it's not about the size of the team. It's about the impact that each member of the team has on a daily basis. So look at WhatsApp, for example, acquired by Facebook for $1 billion. I think they had something like 19 employees, right? So a lot of the people we have now are very hardworking and very motivated to do what they do on a daily basis.
It's great. How can people follow Kotani Pay and learn more about your work and be updated about the updates and what will be coming in the future?
Yes. So you can follow us on Twitter. On Twitter, the hashtag is @Kotani Pay. Then my own Twitter handle is @Felix Macharia _ @Felix Macharia is MACHARIA _. We are also on LinkedIn, so there's a Kotani Pay page on LinkedIn as well.
It's great. Felix, I'm very happy that I was able to have you for this episode, and I'm looking forward to talking to you in the future.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Feel free to visit our website, Tomorrow.Africa, and subscribe to our channels to be updated about the future episodes. We publish 2 episodes per month at the 1st and 15th of each month, so stay tuned for the next ones. And until then, stay curious, stay ambitious, and see you tomorrow.